All right. So, I wanted to spend this video talking about finding your meaning because finding your meaning has been one hell of a journey for me. I thought finding your meaning was simple when I first started to look for it, but as I looked for it more and more, it just got more and more complicated until I realized how simple it all was. So I titled this piece, Find Your Meaning by Resting in None. And this describes my own journey in trying to find meaning in my own life as a young man in the 21st century. Now, growing up, we typically start with the king's phase, I like to call it, the first phase, where we kind of drown ourselves in this incessant pleasure. And that's typically the first phase that most of us go through, and it's certainly the first phase that I went through in the kind of search for meaning. So when I was in high school, the first phase, the first step in searching for meaning was kind of looking for it in incessant pleasure. At this phase, it's really the most shallow level. And so if you imagine you're given a feast, the feast of a king's buffet every evening. By the next morning, you're hungry all over again. You imagine you had the pick of the kingdom's finest girls at the snap of a finger. And by tomorrow night, you're bored. And so you snap your finger again, right? Imagine your court jester remarks something uncomfortable that you really don't like. That's easy. Off with his head. Now that's basically the life of pleasure, right? Of instant gratification, of quick dopamine hits. You get everything at your command. All you have to do is snap your finger. It comes to you. Now, even though your life isn't as lavish as the king's, it's lavish in a way that's equally disturbing, the way we have our lives in this 21st century, right? Pizza shows up at our door at 2 a.m. from 3 taps on a glass screen. We have instantaneous access to all the hottest girls in the world, anytime you want, anywhere you want. And every night you secretly hope that this next one might satiate your sexless thirst once and for all, until you open the next tab and another, and then you wonder why you can't talk to a woman. Right? I'm speaking about all of this from my own experience through my own development as a guy, right? Because these are phases that I think many of us men go through in one way or another, especially in this day and age, right? And so we have the ability to access the information of the entire world, but then, we just choose to mind-numbingly scroll through garbage, social media, just to get quick hits of dopamine, right? This one doesn't do it. Oh, that, no, 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 right? You get what I mean, right? Like, if you just observe. Today I observed a friend literally just zoning out, scrolling in that exact same way to get a quick dopamine on his phone. And when you just observe it and you're able to watch it from a distance, then you start to see it's like, wow, like, holy fuck, what have we done, And so every single pleasure of the king is available to us, young men, at the tip of your fingers. And so it's like, how can you be so sure that your life is so different from a king's? Because you can command food to show up at your house. You can command girls to show up on your screen. You can command quick dopamine hits anytime you want. It's instant pleasure. We have it all. And yet, why are we so depressed? Why are our lives so meaningless today? And I like to call today the king's age because basically, young men, they live like kings. That is, kings that have forgotten their duty. The tyrannical, slobby kind of kings, right? Who have become self-serving and forgot why they were put here. And so, if I'm your court jester, then I'm telling you that your duty first and foremost is to yourself, right? And that's self-respect. And a king who does not respect himself obviously does not respect others. And so this leads us to the second phase, which I call the celibates phase, where we renounce pleasure. And so once we get into enough despair in trying to find meaning through pleasure, we enter the second phase where we try to find meaning through discipline. And so we realize we have all of these issues that we can improve, right? Whether that's our fitness, our physique, our athleticism, our health, our nutrition, our finances, our career, our social life, our dating life, our relationships, our family relationships. We start making the effort to improve it. A lot of young men, that's where they go, right? We start to go into productivity, finding all these productivity tricks. To have to wake up, do a morning routine, got to meditate, got to take cold shower, do this, do that, right? You start training, right? Weight training, you start doing cardio, getting your body in shape. You know, you start managing your finances better, right? Maybe you start budgeting. You start getting your career more into check. You start questioning, am I doing the best job that I can? And if I'm not getting paid what I deserve to be paid, then do I work in a way where I show that I deserve to be paid in that way, right? And so we start to try to improve ourselves in all of these different areas, right? The second step in finding the meaning of your life is to understand that you need a meaning to sustain you. But somewhere deep enough along the way, you start to realize that your very effort of self-improvement, of renouncing pleasure in the name of discipline, is kind of it's still the same despair, but now instead of a despair for pleasure, it's a despair for discipline. It's a despair for self-respect, in the hopes that you might gain the respect of others. Hell, your own self-respect, right? Because your self-respect then starts becoming based upon how disciplined you are throughout the day, right? You start beating yourself down when things don't go your way, when you don't fulfill habits, and so you become trapped. But you're no longer so trapped by the chains of pleasure, but now you're trapped by the chains of discipline. And I know everyone says discipline will set you free, right? Yes, but what I'm trying to say here, my point that I'm trying to get across, is that you don't want to make yourself discipline's bitch. Because that's what happens a lot of the times. You renounce pleasure so heavily that now you're so heavily attached to discipline that it's like your life depends on how disciplined you are. And the less disciplined you are, the more you beat yourself. But you're still suffering because your meaning is dependent on that discipline. And so you've been doing this for, months or maybe even years, right? You've improved yourself so much that you don't even recognize the person in the rear view anymore. And on every level at the surface, your life looks great. You're productive, you practice good habits, you exercise, you meditate. But these are the things that have exactly become the problem. It's because you are productive. You practice good habits. You exercise. And worst of all, you meditate every day. Because when you turn these kind of tools, when you turn the tools into chains, then your life becomes a drag. And so somewhere in the back of your mind, life just starts to become like a chronic tension of tasks that you have to fulfill. You're like a drone that has to fulfill every next order. And the orders are never ending, because what are you going to do tomorrow? You're going to wake up, right? Unless you do something to permanently not wake up, you're going to have to wake up tomorrow and repeat the same chronic tension of tasks. And so your self-worth and your mood starts to become dictated by how long you meditated today, what time you woke up today. The smallest nuances in these little habits, you start to just trigger you, right? And you justify it by saying, oh, I need to be better. I need to improve myself. I need to be better than who I was yesterday. But then this kind of improvement is not really improvement, in the way that it's self-hatred. It's a radical non-acceptance, because you can't accept yourself. And so your life just has become constantly attention to improve, and you've become chained by improvement rather than being freed by it, Because wasn't that the whole point of improvement? Is to set you free, right? But now you've become chained by it. And so you still think that one day you'll attain happiness by attaining some final improvement or whatever someday, right? But then you're still looking for it. And each day you look, you don't find. And so this kind of brings us to our third phase, which is realizing that pleasure is bullshit. And in a way, so is discipline. Now, I'm not saying discipline is bullshit, but I'm saying that discipline is bullshit in the way that I'm trying to make a point. So hear me out. You start to ask yourself, right? Productive or unproductive, what makes you happy? Productive or unproductive, what makes you frustrated? And so it's like chances are that you always beat yourself up when you fail to fulfill some kind of habit or a task or action for the day. And you think that kind of discipline is going to lead you to happiness. But then you start to consider, if you keep delaying your happiness, then when are you ever going to find it? And so at this point, you start to look within yourself. And rather than keep looking outside onto habits or tricks or game or methods or philosophies, you start looking within yourself. And you're just observing yourself. You start looking into your own life and your day-to-day. And you start to realize that for your whole life up until now, you've basically made your sense of happiness conditional. And so you're stuck in the same trap that you started in when you were still playing king, right? You know, I didn't fap today, or I fapped today. I took a cold shower today. I didn't take a cold shower today. I meditated. I didn't meditate today, right? If your happiness becomes based upon any of these conditions, then you're still stuck on the wheel. And you'll never find any kind of lasting fulfillment so long as you are looking to something else for it, right? You'll never find any kind of lasting meaning so long as your meaning is conditional. And that's what the Buddhists called the wheel of samsara, right? The wheel of suffering. And it's that for as long as you desire, aka are seeking something, you're going to continue to suffer. And you're going to continue to spin round and round and round and round and round until you see the futility of it. But then how do you stop desiring, right? Why would you even want to stop desiring? But then you have to realize that you can't stop desiring, and trying to stop desiring is a desire in itself. But then at the same time, don't expect to stop your suffering if your happiness is based on conditional circumstances of cause and effect, right? I did this, I didn't do this, she did that, he didn't do that, right? So long as your sense of fulfillment and peace, inner peace and tranquility is projected, attached to outward manifestations, whether it's something that you do or don't do, or it's something that other people do or don't do, then you are mentally chained to them. But then somewhere along the way, you kind of start to realize that you can only be stuck on this wheel of mental suffering, this chronic state of dissatisfaction with life, if you're constantly trying to escape your life, right? So at first, you try to escape your life through all of these different pleasures, drugs, alcohol, sex, video game, porn, whatever. You're trying to escape it through pleasure. Then in the second phase, you try to escape life through discipline. This is the meditation, this is the cold shower, this is the running in the morning, this is the doing things that make you uncomfortable for the sake of trying to find a sense of escape. But at some point you come back and you realize you can only be stuck on the wheel if you're trying to escape it. Your very desire to become free is itself, that is the attachment that keeps you stuck, that keeps you chained. And so your attachment to freedom is what is equivalent to your suffering. And so when you realize that, you don't try to escape anymore. And you don't try not to escape because there's nowhere to go. You're always here. Like, I'm here right now. You're watching this. You're there right now. How could it be any other way, right? You can project yourself into the future, but where does the future happen? Happens right now. And so you're always here where you always are, and you're creating reality in every moment. And the hardest thing people refuse to believe is that they're already free. And they chain themselves with their own minds because they either go to the past and remain stuck there, or try to go to the future and remain stuck there. Right? So in the present moment, it doesn't matter what you achieve or don't achieve, because if you think my attainment will end suffering, then you're suffering from my attainment will end suffering syndrome. And on the other hand, if you think being careless ends suffering, then you'll simply just suffer from being careless. As long as you go about your life thinking you have something to gain by clinging on to an idea or condition, whether that's pleasure or discipline, then you're by definition suffering because you think that that's somehow going to save you. But you have to realize that everything you've ever been looking for outside has always been within yourself, and you find it in you, in the present, in the here and now. And that's why Jesus said, the kingdom of God isn't something that people will be able to see and point to. Neither shall they say, lo here or lo there, for behold, the kingdom of God is within you. And then everyone just brushes that off. But deep down you know this. But you've confused the vehicle with the destination, right? Pleasure is a vehicle, discipline is a vehicle, alcohol is a vehicle, drugs are a vehicle, sex is a vehicle, mystical experience is a vehicle, meditation is a vehicle, productivity is a vehicle, cold showers are a vehicle, exercise is a vehicle. Like, everything is a vehicle if you have the eyes to see it. But the destination is ultimately freedom, right? So if you want to be free, then you can't be stuck trying to be free, right? Because if you're trying to attain freedom, by definition, you're not free. And so the whole reason you can't find meaning, you can't find lasting meaning, you can't find contentment, is because you keep looking elsewhere for it. But it's not out there. It's here in you, always. Especially when it seems least like it. It was never a lack of information, opportunity, love, freedom, circumstance, whatever. It was just the mere fact of you thinking that you are the one who lacks. And you thinking that you're the one who lacks, you'll do everything in your power to justify your lack in the name of freedom. So it's self-chaining. And, you know, as history knows all too well, countless religions have been created in the name of God. Countless wars have been started and fought in the name of freedom and love. Countless lives have been lost in the name of equality, of which ended in equality of starvation. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that in the name of something, we've mistaken the symbol of that thing for the actual thing itself. So if I take my finger and point to the moon, people then start to look at my finger, but I want you to see the moon, right? That's how people get caught up in this, trying to attain freedom through getting wealthy. Most commonly, people mistake it through money. Money is a symbol for wealth, but is it wealth itself? Because ultimately, this thing called wealth or freedom, whatever, it's a mental construct in your head. And how you define that mental construct is how you're going to perceive reality to be. And so when you construct it in a way, say, money equals wealth, then you're going to be chained by money because you've mistaken the symbol, money, for the actual wealth itself, which is a feeling. It's a feeling. And so by definition, when you're looking for an attainment outside of yourself, that means you're separate from it. And creating this mental construct around something means that you are now clinging to it. And by being separate from it, you're going to wreak all kinds of havoc just to get this desperate hit of satisfaction, just to prove that you're right. But a mansion, a car, endless food, drink, sex, that's never going to fulfill you. But when you cling on to it, you're going to do everything in your power to justify not letting it go because you're afraid. You think if you let it go, then you'll drown. But that's exactly how you drown, by not letting it go. By not letting it go, you drown in the pleasure, right? That is finally until you renounce pleasure, and then you drown in the renunciation of pleasure. And then you start to realize personal development, productivity, meditation, none of these will fulfill you either, right? Meditation is not going to fulfill you until your very life becomes the meditation. And so you become free when you let go of all these subtle expectations and desires and conditions. You're free when you finally feel free enough to allow life to manifest itself before your very eyes without trying to fight it. Because the moment you realize that you can't escape life, you finally start to live it. And then inside of you, this extraordinary sense of peace begins to well up. And you're free because you no longer beat yourself up over what you did or what you didn't do. You're no longer stuck on this chain of past and future because you have broken free from it. You're free because you know that this moment is it. And how you choose to respond to this moment is equal to what kind of a past that you create. How you choose to respond to this moment is equal to the future that's going to manifest before your very eyes. And when will the future manifest? When it does. Now, right? Think of the future, okay? Go into that future and then imagine it manifesting. When does it happen? It happens now. And so you could either dream about the future and keep it separate from you, or you could turn it into your reality. And you start to realize that every past is created from the present moment, and that every future manifests itself from the present. The question is, what kind of present are you dreaming into your very reality? It's the question of how do you deal with all of these imperfect situations that life inevitably will throw at you? And the only way you can deal with it is by becoming somebody who can dance with it, right? That's the ideal version of you. Somebody who can dance with all of these situations. And this person who's able to dance with it is the person who has already become their ideal self. So are you going to become your ideal self in the future? Oh, where's the future? So find that ideal version of yourself. Find it in the present. And you'll quickly realize that the only person you ever needed to be was yourself, in order for the rest to fall into place. When you find that ideal version of yourself in the present, how could you ever make a mistake? And so, all you need to do is fall in love with your dream. Then it becomes your reality. All you need to do is fall in love with your reality. And then it becomes your dream. All you need to do is fall in love. It took many years of seeking to kind of get to this point of realizing that the only secret there is to life is to just fall in love with it. And if you can fall in love with your own life, everything else will fall into place. You don't have to worry about it. And ultimately, that's faith, right? I think faith is so misinterpreted because it's just become corrupted. It's just become diluted with all of these mainstream Christian kind of, it's just become cliche and meaningless. But when you're able to develop your own sense of meaning for all the things in life, whether that's wealth or love or freedom or happiness, then you realize you create reality. You create reality, because my definition of love, my definition of wealth, success, happiness, freedom, tranquility, peace, joy is not your definition of it, and you don't have to accept mine. But create your own, right? Because once you start to create your own, then by definition, you're creating reality on your terms. And you're no longer living by the terms that the culture has set, because the culture has set money as freedom. Right? And we all know how shallow that one is. And so I'll end it off there. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. I love you, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.